Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Thursday morning, March the 6th. Another very windy day coming to the mid-Atlantic region, the northeast U.S. There's actually a secondary cold front that will arrive in the afternoon, and that could kick off the strongest wind gusts later in the day of up to 50 miles per hour or so. Places like D.C., Philadelphia, New York City can continue right through the night with those 50 mile per hour wind gusts. Even Friday will be very windy as well in the mid-Atlantic region, northeast U.S. with probably 40 to 45 mile per hour wind gusts. Stays pretty chilly right through the upcoming weekend across the northeastern quadrant of the nation, but a big time warm up will spread into the eastern states next week, probably producing 70 plus degree high temperatures by, let's say, Wednesday of next week in places like D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. It looks very warm indeed for Tuesday and especially by Wednesday of next week in the mid-Atlantic region. Well, on Tuesday of this week, we had a severe weather outbreak down across the lower Mississippi Valley region, and these were the storm reports, at least the initial preliminary storm reports as depicted here by NOAA's Storm Prediction Center. All these in blue represent damaging wind gusts reported with trees downed or roofs blown off, and the reds here represent tornado reports, at least preliminary tornado reports. They're not officially deemed tornadoes until someone goes out and it inspects the damage on the ground, but there were as many as 15 reported tornadoes on Tuesday in the lower Mississippi Valley region, and hundreds, more than 300 to be specific, damaging wind reports on Tuesday. Now, let's take a look at as to the results from yesterday. Well, here we go. This is the NOAA's Storm Prediction Center storm reports from yesterday. And again, the blue representing damaging wind gusts, primarily Delmarva Peninsula on south across Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. It was a little bit too cool north of the Mason-Dixon line, a little bit less unstable of an atmosphere in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, for example, as compared to farther to the south. So less in the way of damaging wind reports. Again, these are preliminary. There are some adding to the situation early today that I think will be added in. I'm hearing about already in southeastern Pennsylvania. As far as tornadoes, only one report so far here, right here, that red dot right here. And again, one reported tornado, more than 100 damaging wind reports. That tornado right on that North Carolina, South Carolina border region. Now, there certainly can be some damaging wind reports from today and tonight reported here on Friday morning, because again, wind gusts of 50 miles per hour or so, quite likely later on today into tonight throughout the mid-Atlantic region and into the northeast U.S., and that includes the big cities of D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. Well, I mentioned a secondary cold front arriving this afternoon, and just wanted to show the morning analysis of the isobars, the lines of equal pressure here, basically the pressure field here. We can kind of see this initial front depicted right here in this area of the isobars here. But notice upstream here, right here, there's a secondary cold front located right here. That is sliding to the south and east, and it arrives in the I-95 corridor region of D.C., Philadelphia, New York City during the afternoon hours. Winds will be strong this morning, but they'll kind of get an extra boost when this secondary cold front arrives and passes through the I-95 corridor region later this afternoon. So the strongest wind gusts, places like Philadelphia, D.C., New York City, likely to take place during the p.m. hours this afternoon into tonight. And again, that can be up to 50 miles per hour or so, potentially leading to some damaging wind reports again later today. Through the night tonight, it stays very windy right through the night. In fact, stays pretty windy on Friday in this whole part of the nation, with 40 plus mile per hour wind gusts expected to close out the work week. Well, let's take a look at some forecast maps from last night's conventional run of the GFS, the zero-Z version of the GFS. We're looking here at 850 millibar temperature anomalies and colder than normal air mass in the eastern part of the nation, except for up across New England this morning. There's still some warmer than normal air before the passage of that secondary cold frontal system that we talked about. But it starts to turn warmer over the middle of the country this weekend, and that spreads into the eastern states. We'll move forward here. Again, 70 75-degree possible highs by Wednesday in places like D.C. and Philadelphia. And we'll see here over the upcoming weekend, it's cold over New England. Stays pretty cold relative to normal for the early part of March in the Mid-Atlantic region as well on Saturday and Sunday. And then that warmer than normal pattern here really starts to set up first out over the middle part of the nation by the time we get to Monday of next week. It then continues to spread to the east here. Notice, by the way, Canada still well below normal throughout the southern part of Canada. Yes, we do have a big time warm up next week spreading into the eastern states, but it's not quite the end of the cold air outbreaks. Here we go by Tuesday, very mild day, D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, and throughout the Midwest, the Great Lakes region. That continues to dominate the scene here by the time we get to Wednesday. Could have 75-degree highs on Wednesday in D.C., maybe 70 to 75 in Philadelphia as well. Probably a push to get to 70, but close in New York City on Wednesday. But notice again, a lot of cold air to the north here. So this warm-up, yes, it'll be spring fever alert type weather, but it's not quite signaling the end of the cold air outbreaks. Here we go into the end of next week. Colder than normal air up across New England, and kind of a topsy-turvy setup here across the rest of the nation, with warmer than normal in the middle of the nation and then colder than normal out across the west. That warmer than normal then spreads back to the eastern states by next weekend. This is all the way out to Sunday, March 16th or so, 10 or 11 days out, and some colder than normal conditions over the western part of the nation. By the way, before I forget, this weekend, this Sunday morning is when we turn the clocks ahead an hour to switch back to daylight savings time. Well, let's take a look at the surface forecast maps. And again, I mentioned kind of a secondary cold front. There's one cold front now off the eastern seaboard, certainly cooler this morning than it was late yesterday in the Mid-Atlantic region in the northeast U.S. And winds will be quite noticeable, quite strong this morning, but the real kick in the winds will come when this secondary front here drives quickly to the south and east. And when that arrives and passes through this afternoon, excuse me, that's when the winds will really kick up. And again, 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts possible all along the I-95 corridor region during those p.m. hours here later this afternoon and through tonight. Now, let's move forward here in time. Some snow all the way up in northern New England as that above normal temperature pattern will flip to below normal by the time we get to tonight and tomorrow. And look at that pressure gradient here by midnight tonight or so. 980 low here departing off to the north and east, and incoming high, and a very strong pressure gradient between these two systems here. And again, 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts later today and tonight in the Mid-Atlantic, in the northeast U.S. Stays windy on Friday and a chilly day. And there is a weak system here that will cross the middle of the nation on Friday with some snowfall, kind of a band of some snow and some accumulating snow here right across the heartland here. And that moves to the east, and it does tend to weaken. However, I do believe enough will hold together that you certainly have to put out the chance of rain and or snow showers on Friday night, places like D.C., Philadelphia, and New York City from this weakening system here. This is the around midnight tomorrow night into early Saturday morning. That moves on through, and yes, there will be a storm system down across the southeastern states. Maybe 5 or 6 days ago, this looked like it could move up into the cold air in the northeast and produce some snow. It's not going to happen. It looks like it stays too far to the south here, and it produces decent rainfall across the southeastern states. By the way, they can use the rainfall in the southeastern part of the nation. Then we get to the early part of next week, and we talk often about these dashed blue lines here, the 540 line, kind of the rain snow line during the wintertime season. Watch as we push forward next week, and this will be indicative of a big time warm up that will spread from the middle of the nation into the eastern states. You see this 540 line as of Monday morning right across the Pennsylvania-Maryland border. That just pushes up to the north and east. By Tuesday morning, the 546 red dash line pushes north and east, and even higher than that by the time we get to Tuesday night Wednesday morning. Here we are Wednesday morning, now the 552 thickness level. This is kind of correlated with temperatures, or specifically represents the thickness of that layer between the surface, or 1,000 millibars, in the middle of the atmosphere, or 500 millibars. And the higher these numbers, generally the higher the temperature. So here we go. We can see this general flow of air here by next middle week, Wednesday. Winds blow counterclockwise around lows. This is warm air flowing from the southwest into the northeast, the south central states, into the Ohio Valley. And again, Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, spring fever alert kind of weather for DC, Philadelphia, New York City. 70+ degree highs possible by the middle part of next week. Now we'll go out a little bit farther in time, and one of the things you have to watch for this time of the year, and especially in the month of April, backdoor cold fronts. If you live in the Northeast or the Middle Atlantic region, you know what I'm talking about. A warm spell can quickly end with a reversal of the low-level winds from a north to a northeasterly direction. Cold air moving off the still cold western Atlantic Ocean. You have to watch for backdoor cold fronts. That can kind of mess up a warm-up very quickly in Boston, New York City, even in Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. And it's on the table for the end of next week. We'll just have to watch for something like that. The colder air can kind of slide in from the north and northeast here. In fact, you see colder air returning by the latter part of next week, and even potentially resulting in some snow up across New England. Here's another storm system that looks like headed for the Carolinas. We'll have to track that closely next week, but it kind of helps to change the pattern to, at least for a day or two, to more normal conditions in the Mid-Atlantic region. But out in the west, in the middle of the nation, you still have a very, very strong south to north flow of air here by the end of next week. So this is a big time warm up. Again, it may that warm up may slacken off for a day or two in the Middle Atlantic region, but then that pours right back in over the subsequent weekend here. The following week, in fact, will push ahead in time. And here we go. This is looking like this time period, and we're all the way out now to Saturday, March 15th, of warmer than normal conditions. But again, remember, there's a lot of cold air up across Canada, so even though there's a big time warm up coming next week and beyond for a while, there are cold air outbreaks on the horizon. Well, one last map I wanted to show before we wrap up here. This is kind of an interesting map. It's a total snow mass for the entire northern hemisphere, so not only the U.S. and Canada, but on the other side of the pole as well, Siberia. And we're at that time of year where it's pretty much the peak time of the year for snow cover, and we're well above average here across the northern hemisphere. Now that much of the U.S. is not above average, but when you look at the hemisphere as a whole, the northern hemisphere, we're right in this area right here, quite a bit above average for this time of the year. So kind of an interesting pattern, and that is we were actually below normal in the northern hemisphere again for quite a good part of the winter here through December. You see the time frame right here, December, January, but then we started crossing over into relatively normal conditions, and now as we move through the first week of March, above normal conditions across the hemisphere as a whole for snow cover. Just kind of an interesting way to end up this video discussion. That's it for now. For arcfieldweather.com, this has been meteorologist Paul Dorian.